This episode contains visual demonstrations. We highly recommend watching the video on our YouTube channel. Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia Dixon and Dr. King continue discussing TKM, a physics-based, non-invasive way to support the body's natural healing processes. For more resources and further teaching from Dr. King, see the links in the show notes. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
What happens in the center of the body? What are those energy points? Some people refer to them as chakras. Some people refer to them as energetic points. Can you talk to us a little bit about leveraging the reality of them and how they operate in your system?
I like the word reality. So, can I preface that with what mankind, meaning humans, do when they discover something, but they don't understand it? To make it short, they make up stuff.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, is there's a lot of made up things that are available out there, a lot of philosophies that have no roots in science or physics or, how would you say, facts. But what we're talking about that someone would call chakras or points or other things is you have in this 144,000 functions, it starts with the first pathway that we call median in the body. And they have locations, like one at the top of the crown of the head and one in the center of the forehead. And you can get very, very microscopic precise in these locations. And we've done studies with PhDs in anatomy on cadavers to find out what is the difference in the flesh for this so-called energy thing. And you will find the papillae that are there are very different than any other location on the body. The papillae that extend up from the dermis to the epidermis towards the skin surface are more than twice as many in the area of a point than a non-point. They have things with them in the papillae that you don't have in other areas, like nerve wrappings, capillary loops, and different things. You also find that if you study with
when you talk about points, you talk about these points from the top to the forehead, to the throat area, to the upper stomach. Is that what the points you're talking about?
Yes.
You're finding the tissues different there.
Yeah, I call them energy spheres.
Okay.
Because they are a microscopic point. If I took this pencil on a paper and drew a dot that you can see, what you can see in a microscope and study of what I was explaining about the papillae is smaller than that.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But I call it an energy sphere because it has approximately 3 inches, approximately 3-inch diameter of effective stimulation. If you touch within that area, it's like radiating. So let me give you an analogy. If you're walking across in a winter carpet and you get static electricity and you reach for a doorknob, before you touch it, it can arc. So you don't have to be pinpoint. And we're conductive. We're mostly water. Physically, we're mostly water. So if you're close to it, it will be good enough. But my point is, remember, I'm the why person. There is a very precise pinpoint location. And with those, they are the midline of the pathways that splits off that we call supervisor. We call this one median. And these are names. What do? I give it a name. I give that a name because it's in the middle. I give supervisors a name for the 2 pathways on each side because they supervise that part of the body, that half of the body. And then you have mediator that goes through the limbs. And what mediator pathway does is it mediates between left and right supervisors with the median to keep the body in balance. What am I saying? God created everything in our system, and if we have an energy system, then it's created by God, or it wouldn't exist. And if he creates it, he has everything in a divine order. So there are checks and balances. One analogy is we have an automatic energy balancing system within us. I call it mediator. It's the one that helps keep it in balance. But if we think, feel, or have a physical injury that gets us off, then that system can't function correctly. So if you have any mental, emotional, or physical issues, I already know that system is impaired. So back to your question about those points in the median, those are middle locations. Let's take the one on the forehead. On the left and right side in supervisor, you have a location called 20, an energy sphere. And then the one in the center you have, and that one in the center helps both of those. So sitting there and doing the median sequence, if you hold center of the forehead, you're helping left and right 20. If you hold the tip of your nose, you're helping left and right 21, which is at the cheekbone. And it follows like that through the body.
I noticed you kept one hand on the top of your head, and with the other hand, you're moving through these points. Is that advisable?
It has to be.
Okay.
And it has
Can
to be
you do
the
it
right
to
hand.
yourself?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because there is a median. The original median actually works on the spine. This is a self-help version like the one you can get from the website. It's an 8-step process. And the reason that the right hand has to be the right hand on top of the head is because that's where 17 different function energy combine, and it relates to seeking North Pole if you're talking about magnets. So there's North Pole and seeking North. That gets into a whole nother thing of understanding what is true North, what is true magnetic North, and all of that. So your right hand, right palm, is a positive pole. Your left palm is a negative pole. And where you apply that, it works just like, electrical engineers, when I explain this, they say, oh, I got it. Because the fact is, in God's creation, there are no contradictions. So if it works in your bioenergy, it works in electricity, it works in everything else. So the energy moves with a contact of two hands. Everything in TKM, you need a contact of two hands. Why? For a negative and a positive. And it moves from the negative location to the positive location on the established pathways.
Can you stop an anxiety attack?
Yes.
On yourself?
Yes. One way to do it is take all your finger pads and place them in the center of your body at the center of your chest. Sometimes on that sternum, you can feel a little part of that bone that protrudes out a little bit, and you just hold that and try to breathe normally. Of course, if you're in a panic attack, that will be a challenge.
Is there a specific breathing pattern?
I have one. It's called good breathing. So there are many, many breathing patterns for lymphatic breathing, for this breathing and that breathing. But for energy circulation, you actually do not hold your breath.
Okay.
You don't hold it at the top. You don't hold it at the bottom, because every moment I don't agree with this, but the Asian philosophy of breathing related to energy is every moment you hold your breath, they consider like a moment of death, like it shortens your life. So I don't agree with that. But the reason they say that is because it congests your energy.
Right. Which I see what you're saying. I see what they mean. I like that. I want people listening to know, because so many people suffer from anxiety attacks. And I think there are so many insults on us, not just spiritual, emotional, psychological, but also environmental. If you put please.
If there's somebody else around them, I'll show you something more powerful and quick.
Okay.
That they might be able to apply to themselves, maybe not, depends on if they can reach. But T1, which is at the base of the neck, that large vertebra.
Right hand?
The left hand.
Left hand, okay.
So if you place the left finger pads, not the end of the fingers, but finger pads on that, and the right hand go to that same location in the center of the chest, and just hold that step. That is one step that I have actually in the EMT book and on our app. There's a TKM app. You could find that at tkmapp.com.
Okay.
And it's there. It's one step out of a whole sequence for balancing anything dealing with emotion. Panic attack is emotional. And it's absolutely phenomenal in the results.
That is amazing. I feel it. I mean, I'm not anxious about anything. I'm so excited to speak with you. This is a year overdue. But, I just feel this calmness.
Yes.
Left hand.
Left
in
hand.
The base right there of your brain.
To the base of the neck.
Of the neck.
And the right hand to the center of your sternum.
And it's the pads of your 5 fingers.
Very
resting.
Important. Because if you take a microamp meter and test the conductivity, because Hollywood has a lot of this stuff, but you have far more conductivity at the pads than you do the end.
Okay.
And we're trying to make a contact, so we want the best contact we can do.
Wow, that's almost makes me really sleepy, to be honest with you.
It's wonderful.
So you can teach a child to do this.
Absolutely. We have worked with children that you can't touch because of their mental and emotional problems. Maybe one of their parents can't touch them, nobody else. So we'll work, in the worst case, I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll make it short, to show you the influence. So everything resonates, right?
Right.
If you drop a pebble in water, it resonates out. If you do I think I even have that right here. If you take, there we go, a tuning fork, and boom, you can hear that. You can only hear that because it's resonating out.
Right.
What is that? That's frequencies. So everything that exists has a frequency. So I would place the child on the mother because if the child didn't allow me to touch, and then I would work on the mother until the child was coherent enough, balanced enough, healthy enough, stable enough to where I could work on the child. And then their personality and everything changes. Don't forget, this is physically, mental, emotional.
Prostate cancer, breast cancer, liver cancer, cancer. It's a complete chaotic situation in the body. Talk about confusion, chaos, and dis-ease and all those 144 points. Everything has to be in a continual tailspin.
It is. And it's sad to say it's what so much of the world, the globalists, ... are purposely trying to do to mankind,
right.
Which sounds ridiculous, but all you got to do is check out the facts.
Yeah.
So my main point is avoid those things to start with. Do what most people talk about, but hardly anybody does, which is called preventative medicine. So the first time I ever met Dr. Cowden is there was a patient of his that had prostate cancer that had a PSA count of close to 1,000.
Wow.
Yes. And he was eat up. He had clusters of tumors in his lungs and his spine. He was in bad shape. But he had a very positive attitude. He was a nice guy, positive attitude, a fighter, in his will, his spirit. And when he saw Dr. Cowden was able to stop the great rapid escalation of that PSA count. He halted it. When the guy was referred to me, because Dr. Cowden didn't know about me at the time, he was referred by somebody else, still under Dr. Cowden's care. And we started working with him for a short time. We knocked that PSA count in half. And while I was still seeing Dr. Cowden, it was kind of like, what are you doing? And that's what led to me and Dr. Cowden's first meeting. So breast cancer, yes. Let me say it this way. I'm living in this world that everything is trying to kill you as well. So some people think, well, you're doing this, so you are to be in the perfect health forever, always. Remember, I learned about this because of my health challenges. So because of my environment and what I do, I did get kidney cancer that engulfed my left kidney. Now, God healed me miraculously from one moment to the other.
What does your work have to do with the kidney cancer? Because you prefaced it by saying, given the work I do, I specifically got kidney cancer. What does that mean?
That means I work intensely. I'm a little bit of a workaholic, I guess you'd say. And I work on a lot of very ill, very sick people, and I care. So I don't work on them as a number. And that can take a toll on your emotions, and that will take a toll on your health. And because I pour out so much in there, sometimes I neglect my own health.
Yep.
And I have exposures to computers like we're doing right now, headphones and everything else, the EMFs, the RFs. And if you don't consistently do things to help balance that back out, you will pay the price. Simple fact, they have multiple studies that if you have a smartphone, the studies at first said no big deal. Then a 10-year study says there is no one, 100% of the people came out with damage. And the worst damage is brain tumors on the side that you hold the phone. And what it takes for an adult would take 10 years. It only takes 1 year for a child. That's how vulnerable they are. So these are some of the primary reasons we're having a great escalation in cancer and tumors. And besides the shot that they've put out, they're also having problems cardiovascularly and everything else, neurological, all these things, because we're being impaired. So we need to correct that. Bring me back to your question so I don't take too long. What was your question?
That was just fantastic. Everything you're saying is so important. I don't even know if it was important anymore. I forgot my question.
I did too.
I did too. No, what you say is fascinating. This is so vast. I'd love to have you back. I know you're a very busy man and you have a lot on your schedule. It would be such an honor. This is a good introduction into a topic that really you and I know a little bit about because of what we've dedicated our life to, but most people have no idea what the heck we're talking about.
That's so true, and that's the sad part. And
it's going to change. It's going to change.
I believe that. I have high hope for that. And I like the part you said know little about, because you get handicapped if you think you know. I keep in the perspective of and a realization of the immense things that I do not know. But what I have learned, we could go on and on and on just from the TCAM perspective of these things. But back to your question about what do you do for all these different things, there are solutions. There are things that you can do. Now, am I saying that there is 100% guarantee? Well, we all have our time. We're not going to be living here in flesh forever.
Right.
So we are all going to have our time of expiring. But what I'm talking about is early death and death that can be avoided, surgeries that can be avoided, medication, everything else, from simple little things that anybody can do in such simple ways. The biggest challenge is they just don't think it can have that great an impact when it's so simple. That's my challenge. So when it comes to burns, heart attack, asthma attacks, anaphylactic shock, seizures, like I mentioned, acute appendicitis, hemorrhaging, choking, fluid on the lungs, labor pain is a fantastic one. It will make it as though comparatively like a piece of cake. Stroke, even simple things that you can check out like hiccups. That's an easy one. You take both your hands. Anybody can find the bottom of their rib cage. So you find the bottom of your rib cage and take, you got the center of your body, the outside. So split that. Take the middle, take all your fingers, and just place it off the rib cage and then pull up against the rib cage and just simply touch it. Hiccups will stop. Can I give you a short one?
Please.
I had someone call me that had a TKM class, so they knew what to do. And this was from a town that was about 2 or 3 hours away, about 2.5, I think. And they said, I got a neighbor that's had hiccups for 3 weeks and they're suffering horribly. and they've tried all kinds of stuff. Could you please come out here and help them? I said, you're their neighbor. You learned a TKM that helps stop that. Why don't you go over there and help them? So what they did is they were intimidated because they'd had it so long and tried so many things. They went over and they first applied the median sequence that we talked about. An 8-step process takes at least 40 minutes to apply. Well, guess what? They hiccuped all the way through it. And when they finished the median sequence, then they reached over and applied the step for hiccups. Boom, they stopped. And they called back and told me that. I said, well, why didn't you do that step to start with? Just touch what we call the 14s and the hiccups will stop. Now, go ahead.
What does going through the medium sequence, repeat that what that is again for everybody listening?
It's a very broad, general way of helping your 144,000 functions.
And which hands goes on the top of the head?
The right finger pads
That's
go on top of the head. Always. And the left finger pads go to center of the forehead. I'll run through this because they've got the download on the website. And then the center tip of the nose. Of course, you don't want to press whatsoever. And then right there in your trachea, except on that ledge of bone. So on that ledge of bone. And then the next step is you're moving to the center of the chest. And then the tip of the xiphoid process is after that. And then your navel. And then the symphysis pubis, the top center of your pubic bone. Now you're still have your right hand on top of the head and the left is on the top center of the pubic bone for a step. After that step, about 5 minutes, then take the right hand off the head and place it on the very tip of your coccyx, your tailbone. Of course, I don't believe we have a tailbone because we're not Homo sapiens and we didn't come from the animal kingdom.
And why do you put it at the end of your tailbone?
For one thing,
I felt something significant shift.
Yes, that relates to third stratum, which is the bridge from sixth to third for all the 5 stratum for 144,000 functions. And at that point, just physiologically, you have 14,200 and I think 44 neuroreceptor sites. So not anywhere on the coccyx, but at the tip, while your left hand remains at the center of the pubic bone. And that's it.
Wow, I really felt that. And then the hiccup person that you were referencing, then you could do this to get some stability in their system. That's amazing. I felt the difference.
Now, for that person, what I would have suggested if you're going to do those two is go in and apply this and stop the hiccups. And then apply the median sequence for all the trauma that's been caused over the last 3 weeks.
Is that an advisable protocol? For example, if I'm working with children that are compromised ages 6th grade to high school that are homeless, very chaotic homes, very densely populated neighborhoods that are living in poverty?
Yes.
And have an enormous amount of trauma. Would that be a simple protocol? Right hand tips, then go through all the center points and have them experience that, for example, before I start speaking and take a baseline of how they feel before on a scale of 1 to, and then after. Would that be good?
That would be excellent. I would add a couple of things. If you could get them to relax, close their eyes while they do that. And when they're on the first step, because this deals with your frontal lobes, I'll put it this way, your preoccupied mind, and hold that step a little longer to help calm the mind.
Okay.
And because of what
How
you
many
explained,
seconds would you say?
if you can, push it towards 5 minutes.
Okay.
If you're just minimizing to get a short, simple example, maybe 2 minutes. But if you're talking about treatment, it's 5 minutes to 20 minutes.
Wow. Can somebody be lying down and doing?
That's best.
That's the best.
Just lay down and even prop pillows for your arms so you don't have to hold them there, so that you can completely relax. Basically, if you fell asleep, that your hands would still be in position.
PTSD, my first responders.
So
veterans,
for that,
firefighters, police officers, severe trauma.
So could I couple those together with the children and what you just mentioned?
Yep.
When they're doing this, also stay longer at this one center of the chest when you talked earlier about anxiety, because that's the emotional aspect. So I said forehead for mental, the center of the chest for the emotional. So you want to spend longer times at those two places.
Okay.
And if you did a single step, what we call the one for anxiety or emotional upset, is for the person to hold either T1 or
with
T5.
Their right hand. With their right hand.
I'm doing that, but actually it's with the left hand.
Okay, that's what I thought. I got confused there for a minute.
Thank you for correcting me. That's good.
No, it's okay.
And then with that, you're holding either T1 or T5 in the right hand center of the chest.
Is that with your hand or with the tip of your fingers in T5 and T4?
Both of them are with finger pads.
Okay, finger pads always. Okay.
Checking the pulses, and we can't really get into that because it's very involved, but I need to point to it because let's paint this scenario. Wouldn't it be nice if God's creation, this body, had a way to communicate exactly what's going on with its priority needs and order? It does. And that's in these pulses. And remember, this is a piece of it because we have thorough sequences. So there's a thorough sequence that will calm them down right there on the spot and level it out. And you can check pulses and confirm. So I was talking about the pulses. So let me go back to where my 5-day class that I just did one back in May that was a 3-day class. So as time goes on, you have to keep condensing things. Back when I was in Silicon Valley teaching a 9-day class, introductory, on the last day of that class where I had already taught, there was some people, family members coming in at the end of the class to get with the other people. And what we were doing at the end, I was getting them to go around and check all the people they could for the pulses so they could learn that. This is what I called checking pulses. And there was a woman there that had very chaotic pulses that were pounding very loudly. And they asked me to come over and check, and I found the same thing. Now, what is that? That is an extreme emotional trauma, like it just happened. And I'm looking at this woman, and she looks calm in her face, but pulses don't lie. So I asked her, and just before she came there, she got fired from her job that was her career. But she was trying to keep her composure. But the pulses were telling you that she was in extreme emotional trauma. So we did the step on her and calmed her down. But the pulses will let you know what's going on, even if the person doesn't know. So back to what you do, left to that either T1 or T5, and the right is center of the chest. And I could say minutes, but here's the deal. Different people are traumatized to different degrees because it's a perspective. What might be a trauma to one person, another person could be able to slough off a little easier. And it also might be how they process and deal with it. So when you apply help, recognizing that each person is unique, and if you have the time, just remain on that step until they are calm and peaceful. If you can, if they can focus, because some people are so hysterical, you kind of have to follow them around the room. They can't even stand still for a moment. If they can let you touch them. So when I'm talking about an extreme condition, if they can let you touch them, just do that and kind of follow them around. Don't try to get them to stay still. But as you do that, and if they do stay still, then try to get them to sit down or lay down, then to close their eyes, and then to try to just breathe evenly, relaxed, and stay there until everything calms down. It will totally change their world.
Wow, 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 and wow.
I totally agree. I was
It's
thinking of
just
coming up with
wow.
another book of a lot of other sequences and applications that I don't have in any book yet. And somebody was talking, and I thought, well, I could call it WOW.
Right. We have an evidence-based, data-driven now mental health care program for first responders, veterans. And today
Great.
I got a call from a large group in, well, how about this, in a town in Santa Ana here that's right bordering Newport Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And the crisis they're having with their young people is tragic.
Wow.
We're experiencing some very, very, very serious problems with this demographic, and a very confusing and chaotic political climate that really has spanned about 8 years now, and it's been insane the last year, has left many people feeling that we are a nation divided. And I hold, and I always will declare that we're not a nation divided. We are a nation in a state of confusion, chaos, and dis-ease. And it can be mitigated, and we can turn this thing around in one generation. And I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because it's so wonderful to watch you and do these movements with you and to pay attention to what you're saying. This is not the most exciting podcast we've ever done, but it's the most relevant. And it has significant and immediate consequence for those listening. And I want to thank you so much, because we can displace the confusion, chaos, and dis-ease in our bodies. That,
Absolutely.
by the way, are indivisible with liberty, our capacity to self-govern, and justice for all. So for all of our constituents, our spirit, our soul, and our body. And we can take dominion over those things.
Absolutely.
And people are feeling so helpless and distraught and hopeless. And I just think this information is so important. I'd like to invite you. I just want to extend an invitation to you. I don't know if you know Steve R.E.S T. He's a hemoglobin nurse of many years who found the matrix, the healing matrix of music. Yes. And Dr. Horowitz found the math. So they found the math. Dr. Horowitz discovered the math. Steve R.E.S has the music. And I have the expression, the mental health expression of this healing matrix to really expand the conversation of mental health beyond what's conventional. But you just brought the touch of it all. And you brought the traction, the wheels to rest, I think. Sometimes I, like you, can't wait to get out of bed every day and show up to work, because it's not work. I feel like I'm painting on this canvas and it's wild. And I don't know what's going up there most of the time, but I know it's beautiful and it's life-giving. And you just brought this beautiful dimension to my work. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Dr. King, for taking the time to just spend with us today. Thank you.
It's a huge joy and honor for me, and I appreciate the invitation. And what you were explaining about the people in the area you're talking about, you chose the exact perfect words that I would choose. And my perspective, I think we can turn it in a lot less than a generation. There's confusion. It's a spirit of confusion. We need truth. We need the hope from truth and to help people. And if they just get online instead of, pushing and pointing and everything else, we are not divided. There are many sources that are trying to divide, but we are not divided.
No.
If you buy into that, then your body and your heart, your emotions, everything will respond to that, because that's how God created you. We have choices, and then that has repercussions. Every choice, good choices, bad choices. And we need to make the right good choices, and it will change everything. But we need to know what the choices are so that we can make the right choice. And we need help from people that, let me say something. I started using a phrase when you mentioned about the past 8 years of critical thinking, to trying to help people. Thinking, let's look at things from different perspectives in the process of seeking what is the truth, and to encourage people to vet everything.
Yes.
Even if you like it, even if you believe it, vet it anyway. Because we need to do that to discover what the real truth is. And if we do that, then we can make wiser choices. In that process, I even had people attack me for saying, how dare you ask people to do critical thinking?
Well, that's to do otherwise is an assault we commit against ourselves, because this system, I always talk about the quantum physical system. The soul is a system. The primary sphere of government is the mind, the heart, the will, the conscience, the feelings of a man. Emotions are a function of the central nervous system. They're feelings in motion. But emotions speak to the third system, which is what you so eloquently described, how we can bring it into balance, or at least displace measures of toxins, of disruption. That's really what you taught us how to do. There's so much more I'd like to talk to you about. This is so big, but we touched on a new topic. And being you've dedicated 40 years of your life to this, I can't wait to have you back. And again, I want to invite you to come and let's have a plan. Dr. Horowitz, Steve Reese, and I talked about having a summit, and it'd be an honor to have you. And we would cover pretty much every discipline in that discourse. And I think it would be life-giving and educational for people.
That's wonderful. Let's see if we can find a way to make that happen.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.